Okay, so I want to quickly go over what I like about Unreal Engine 5.8 and why I am actually switching over my project to it. Let's go quickly. Now, I'm going to cover a couple of features, but the first one is that they've increased the performance of Unreal Engine's broadcast graphics capacity. Basically, you can use Unreal Engine. So, being able to use Unreal Engine as a motion graphics tool has always been a pretty big deal. And the reality is, most of us aren't going to be making money from our game instantly. It takes a minimum of 6 months to 2 years to develop. So being able to do basic work for clients like this is always of benefit. It's not something I do personally. I personally just sell courses and learning material. But for a lot of Unreal Engine developers, basically a lot of people that crossed over from design, this is actually important. So having that extra text 3D like interconnectivity can speed up your workflow. Now they've also added in some functionality so that you can manipulate subtitles inside of your audio and sequences better, which I think is always good. Now, the more people that can understand what you've created, the more money you can make. It's better for sales. I personally use a completely different method for my subtitles. I generally have my subtitles linked inside of my audio files. And that's a whole other thing because there we're talking about how you yourself plan out your subtitles and all. So it's different for everyone, but it's good to know that it's an additional feature in Unreal Engine. Now they've also added in a waveform editor. I think that that's cool. As I said, this is another one of those instances of, hey, this is probably good for someone. Now, I myself, I use Audacity as my built-in audio editor. It's a free piece of software, and I like having different tools for different purposes. But it's another feature in the engine, and hey, that's cool. The more tools, the better. And there's a big adjustment because now with the media viewer, they've made it a lot easier to have your reference there. I mean, it makes a pretty big difference being able to easily have your reference there when you're animating, which I think is pretty important. I actually am surprised this wasn't in the engine before, but it is what it is. Good improvement. There have been also some updates to chaos destruction. Chaos physics has always been a challenge to optimize, so they've been working on reducing the calculations and just making it easier to run. I'm using a lot of physics in my game, so this is actually pretty important for me. I'll talk about frame rates in a bit when we talk about their lighting improvements. Now, they've made some changes to how materials are previewed. So I want to show you this side by side in Unreal Engine. So this is Unreal Engine 5.7. So this is Unreal Engine 5.7. I have the window there. So when you're in 5.7 and you're making up a material, right? Essentially, I'm just zooming out a bit. You can see, let me increase the size. Your preview window basically just showed this to you, this basic plane. But in Unreal Engine 5.8, they changed it. So now your preview actually shows you a larger plane with these specific markers for distance. And you're going to notice that this is actually why I'm switching to 5.8. You'll notice there is a much bigger emphasis on actual precision execution. So that's how it is, which is a really good change. Now, the next change, this is probably the biggest reason why I'm upgrading, is the gizmo system. So essentially, Antoine basically talks about it, but essentially they're making it so that you get better precision when you're making the moves and it's easier to make adjustments. Let me show you what that looks like. So back into Unreal Engine 5.7, let's say you have a cube, right? You have your game world and you have a cube. I select the cube, and if I make any movements, right, I'm basically holding it on the y-axis and I'm dragging it. And basically, I don't get any specific information. I can drag it and there's no visual information telling me what I'm changing. Now, of course, you can look at the transform location and see the numbers increasing. Like now it's at minus 1100. When I move it, changes to minus 690. But that doesn't tell me a lot because this is world location. So there was a lot of moving objects on vibes. There was no like real precision here unless I had decided to be precise myself. Now that's Unreal Engine 5.7. Now, inside of Unreal Engine 5.8, Same basic thing. I have a cube. I select it. Notice that there is a lot more information over there. Then as I drag, it actually shows me the distance I'm dragging. Let me zoom in so you see it. So you see I'm moving it by a certain number of centimeters and it's showing me that information. It seems like a pretty small change and I can tell when I've placed it right back in its original position. It's a really small editor tweak, but it makes all the difference. And it also goes to rotation. If I select the rotation, I come back in and I start rotating, it actually shows me the degrees of rotation that I'm rotating the object. Like it seems like such a simple tweak, but man, sometimes getting precision in Unreal Engine it's just a pain. It's an absolute pain getting precision. You had to like type in values. So yeah, that's actually a pretty big and important feature, good enough to upgrade to the latest version. Now, the next important feature is chaos, which is the physics simulation, has now also been applied to clothing. So now you don't need to constantly adapt different clothes for your different characters. You can actually have the clothing fall onto the shape of your character in a way that makes sense and is just calculated and baked in. I like this a lot. This is a very big change. And now, whether even when you're modding games, like modding in a cloth or anything, it just makes it much simpler to execute. I like. Now, quickly for multiplayer people, the replication system has been improved and is now production ready. I haven't tested this myself. I will, then I'll be able to give an honest overview. There have also been some motion capture improvements just for the management of mocap data inside the engine. This is something that's useful for when you're building out your cutscenes, but it depends on your use case for whether or not like you'll implement this. Now, this is another big outstanding feature. Essentially, now in Unreal Engine 5.8, you can get basically any mesh and you can turn it into a meta-human character because just animating using the meta-human movement is just so much better for everything. So being able to turn any mesh into a meta-human, you should not be understated. This is a big workflow speed up. And now you can create characters in all kinds of art styles. Because meta-human has been criticized for only functioning with basic human, but you can actually create very artistic faces with meta-human and animate them. So you're not actually stuck with just you must look like a normal human being. You can spice it up. And now you can do that for the body forms as well. Now, last but definitely not least is that the global illumination has been improved, especially the medium setting, because previously, as someone who believes that ray tracing is really fantastic for how games look, you had a pretty big performance cost for using Lumen. Now, allegedly, it's 2 times faster with the new medium while still having the visual fidelity and quality. And I'm looking forward to that because this is looking pretty fantastic. Before it was looking absurdly noisy. Anyway, that's my generalized overview. I'll go into the global illumination and its different settings another time. Otherwise, hey, you have a good week ahead and enjoy yourself.